In June 2005, 9 honor students from Riverside High School in Connecticut attended what was supposed to be the celebration of their lives, a private graduation party at the Sterling family estate. None of them made it to their graduation ceremony the next morning. 18 years later, when Hurricane Ida's floodwaters receded, they uncovered something in the mansion's ruins that would prove the official story was not just wrong. It was a deliberate lie designed to hide a conspiracy that had been claiming America's brightest young minds for decades. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to help us uncover the stories they tried to bury and ensure no name is forgotten. Emma Rodriguez stood in her FBI field office in Hartford, staring at the caseboard that had haunted her for 18 years. At 36, she was one of the Bureau's most successful cold case agents. But this wasn't just another unsolved mystery. This was personal. In June 2005, Emma had been 18 years old, valedictorian of Riverside High School's graduating class. She should have been at Derek Sterling's exclusive graduation party, along with her 8 closest friends. But 24 hours before the party, her grandmother in Mexico City had suffered a massive stroke. Emma's family had caught the last flight to Mexico that night. It was a decision that saved her life. The 9 students who attended Derek Sterling's party were the academic elite of their class. Each had been accepted to Ivy League universities. Each came from wealthy, influential families. Each had bright futures ahead of them. Tyler Chen was heading to Yale with a full scholarship, planning to study biochemical engineering. His parents owned the largest medical supply company in New England. Madison Cooper had been accepted to Stanford early admission for computer science. Her father was a federal judge. Ryan Mitchell was MIT-bound with plans to revolutionize robotics. His family owned defense contracting firms across 3 states. Jessica Torres was Emma's closest friend since childhood, planning to study international law at Georgetown. Her mother was a state senator. Brandon Walsh was the football team captain, but also a National Merit Scholar heading to Princeton. His family controlled most of the real estate development in the county. Ashley Kim had earned a full art scholarship to Parsons, despite also scoring perfect on her SATs. Her parents were prominent surgeons. Marcus Johnson was Harvard pre-med with research already published in scientific journals. His father was the state's chief medical examiner. Zoe Morrison had been accepted to Juilliard for violin performance while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. Her family owned a chain of private hospitals. And Derek Sterling, the host, whose family's pharmaceutical empire had made them one of the wealthiest families in Connecticut. The official story was simple. 9 teenagers celebrating graduation had been drinking. They decided to drive to the Connecticut River for a late-night swim. Their car went off the road and into the fast-moving water. Despite extensive searches, no bodies were ever recovered. The current was strong, the water deep. It was tragic but explainable. Emma had never believed it. For 18 years, she'd carried the survivor's guilt of being the one who didn't go. She'd become an FBI agent partly because of that night, specializing in missing persons cases, hoping that someday she'd develop the skills to find out what really happened to her friends. She'd tried investigating unofficially several times over the years, but the case file was thin. The local police had concluded their investigation within 3 weeks. The families, devastated by grief, had accepted the explanation and tried to move on. No one wanted to discuss the possibility that 9 honor students had simply vanished. But Emma knew her friends. Tyler was terrified of water and couldn't swim. Madison was diabetic and never drank alcohol. Ryan was so cautious he wouldn't even speed. These weren't kids who would pile into a car drunk and drive to a river in the middle of the night. Something else had happened at Derek Sterling's party. And now, finally, Hurricane Ida had given her the break she'd been waiting for. Emma's phone rang at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in September 2023. The caller ID showed Connecticut State Police. Agent Rodriguez? This is Sergeant Patricia Mills with the Connecticut State Police. We have a situation in Riverside that I think you'll want to see. Emma sat up in bed, immediately alert. What kind of situation? Hurricane Ida hit the Sterling estate pretty hard. The whole mansion collapsed, and when our hazmat team was doing safety assessments, they found something in what used to be the basement. Emma's heart rate quickened. What did they find? A hidden room. Looks like it was sealed off from the main basement. And Agent Rodriguez, there are personal belongings inside. A lot of them. Some look like they could be from 2005. Emma was already reaching for her clothes. I'll be there in an hour. The drive to Riverside felt like traveling back in time. Emma hadn't been to the Sterling estate since she was 18, and seeing the wreckage of the massive mansion brought back a flood of memories. She remembered driving past it on her way to school every day, wondering what it would be like to live in such luxury. The Sterling family had owned the property for 3 generations. Robert Sterling had built his pharmaceutical empire into one of the most successful companies in New England. The mansion had been his crown jewel, 47 rooms, indoor pool, tennis court, and manicured gardens that stretched for acres. Now it was a pile of rubble and broken timber. Hurricane Ida's 90 amphi winds had torn the roof off, and the subsequent flooding had undermined the foundation. The entire structure had collapsed inward like a house of cards. Sergeant Mills met Emma at the police perimeter. She was a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and the weathered look of someone who'd seen too much over the years. The hazmat team found the hidden room around midnight, Mills explained, as they walked toward the debris field. It's about 20 feet below what used to be the main basement level. Looks like it was deliberately concealed. How big is it? Maybe 12 by 15 feet. Reinforced concrete walls, steel door. Whoever built it didn't want it to be found. They reached the excavation site, where emergency crews had cleared a path down to the hidden room. Emma's flashlight beam swept across the space, and what she saw made her stomach clench. The room was filled with personal belongings, organized with an almost obsessive attention to detail. Clothing hung on metal racks, each item in a clear plastic garment bag with a typed label. Shoes were arranged on shelves, also bagged and labeled, and along one wall were 9 school lockers, each with a nameplate. Emma approached Jessica's locker with trembling hands. Inside was everything her best friend had been carrying that night: her purse, her cell phone, her car keys, and the gold bracelet Emma had given her for her 18th birthday, the one engraved with "Best Friends Forever." Tyler's locker contained his MIT acceptance letter, still in its original envelope. Madison's held her insulin kit and the lucky charm she'd carried through every exam since middle school. Each locker was like a shrine to a life cut short. But what made Emma's blood run cold was the digital camera sitting on a metal shelf in the center of the room. It was a 2005 model Canon, exactly like the one Jessica had been carrying that night to document their graduation celebration. "This is a trophy room," Emma said quietly. "Someone kept souvenirs." Sergeant Mills nodded grimly. "That's what we figured. Agent Rodriguez, there's something else you need to see." She led Emma to the far corner of the room, where a metal filing cabinet sat against the wall. The top drawer was labeled Project Documentation. Emma opened it carefully. Inside were hundreds of photographs printed on high-quality photo paper. The first stack showed her 9 friends at various school events throughout their senior year. Someone had been watching them, documenting their activities, their routines, their relationships. The second stack was harder to look at. These photos were from the night of the party. Emma saw her friends arriving at the Sterling mansion, laughing and talking, completely unaware they were walking into a trap. The final photograph in the stack showed 9 unconscious teenagers lying on gurneys in what appeared to be a medical facility. They were still wearing their party clothes, but their eyes were closed, and IV lines ran from their arms. Emma's hands shook as she stared at the image. They didn't drown. They were taken. Emma immediately called FBI headquarters and requested a full forensics team. The hidden room was now a federal crime scene, and she was taking personal charge of the investigation. While waiting for backup, she drove to the Riverside Police Department to review the original case file. The department was housed in a modest brick building that hadn't changed much since 2005. Emma remembered coming here as a scared 18-year-old, begging the police to investigate further. Chief of Police Robert Martinez had been a sergeant back then. Now in his 60s, he looked uncomfortable as Emma spread the original case file across his desk. "Look, Agent Rodriguez, I know you had concerns back then," Martinez said, "but we followed every lead. The evidence pointed to an accident." Emma studied the file with 18 years of investigative experience behind her. What she saw now appalled her. The investigation had been cursory at best. Only 3 interviews were conducted with Derek Sterling, his father Robert Sterling, and the estate's head of security. No forensic examination of the Sterling property, no analysis of cell phone records, no interviews with other classmates or family members. "Chief Martinez, this isn't an investigation. This is a whitewash." Martinez shifted uncomfortably. "The Sterling family was very cooperative. They let us search the estate, provided security footage from that night. Everything checked out." "What security footage? I don't see any video evidence in this file." It was determined to be not relevant to the investigation." Emma stared at him. 9 teenagers vanish from a private party and the security footage isn't relevant? "Agent Rodriguez, you have to understand. This was 2005. The Sterling family is very influential in this community. Robert Sterling employed half the town, either directly or indirectly. Nobody wanted to believe. Nobody wanted to investigate," Emma finished, "because it was easier to accept a convenient lie than to confront an inconvenient truth." She gathered up the file. "I'll need copies of everything. And Chief Martinez, this case is now under federal jurisdiction." Emma's next stop was the local library, where she spent hours researching the Sterling family business empire. What she found was disturbing. Sterling Pharmaceuticals had contracts with the Department of Defense for experimental drug research. Robert Sterling sat on the boards of 3 different biomedical research companies. Most concerning, the company had been involved in several lawsuits throughout the 1990s and early 2000s related to unauthorized human testing. The lawsuits had all been settled out of court with strict non-disclosure agreements. Emma also discovered that Derek Sterling had been arrested twice during high school for incidents involving younger students, once for assault, once for suspected drugging of a female classmate. Both charges had been dropped after his father made substantial donations to the victims' families. But the most disturbing discovery came when Emma researched the Young Talents Foundation, a scholarship organization that Robert Sterling had founded in 2003. The foundation claimed to identify and support exceptionally gifted young people, providing them with specialized educational opportunities. Emma found records showing that the foundation had awarded scholarships to over 200 students between 2003 and 2006. None of those students could be located in any database. It was as if they had simply vanished after receiving their awards. Emma was beginning to understand that her friends hadn't been random victims. They had been specifically targeted because of their intelligence, their academic achievements, and their family connections. Emma contacted FBI agent Michael Chen, who specialized in human trafficking cases involving minors. When she explained what she'd found, Chen was quiet for a long moment. "Agent Rodriguez, I think your case connects to something we've been investigating for years. Can you come to Quantico?" 2 days later, Emma sat in a secure conference room at FBI headquarters, looking at a wall covered with photographs, documents, and connecting lines that mapped out what appeared to be a massive conspiracy. "We call it the talent pipeline," Agent Chen explained. "For decades, there's been a network operating across multiple states, identifying and acquiring gifted young people for various purposes." "What purposes?" "Research, both pharmaceutical and psychological. The subjects are used in experimental programs that wouldn't be approved through normal medical ethics channels." Chen pulled up a file on his computer. The Sterling family was one of several wealthy families involved in funding these operations. They provided the resources and the cover stories. In return, they received access to cutting-edge research data that they could patent and profit from. Emma studied the network diagram. "How many kids are we talking about?" "Conservatively, over the past 20 years, we estimate that more than 500 gifted young people have been taken." "Taken where?" Chen pointed to a map marked with red dots. "Private research facilities, usually disguised as boarding schools or treatment centers. The subjects are told they're participating in advanced educational programs or medical studies. They're kept isolated from their families and the outside world. And if they try to leave," Chen's expression darkened. "Most don't. The psychological conditioning is extremely effective. But the ones who resist—" He showed Emma a series of missing persons reports from across New England. All involved exceptionally bright teenagers from wealthy families. All had supposedly suffered accidents or committed suicide after being accepted to prestigious academic programs. "Your friends weren't the first group to be eliminated," Chen said. "We've found evidence of at least 12 other incidents where entire groups of students were killed when they discovered the truth about their situation or tried to escape." Emma felt sick. How is this possible? How can something like this operate for decades without being exposed? "Money and influence," Chen said simply. "The families involved have connections at the highest levels of government, law enforcement, and academia. They've been very careful to choose victims whose disappearances could be explained as accidents or runaways." Chen pulled out another file. "But we've been tracking them, and thanks to your discovery, we finally have physical evidence that could bring down the entire network." "What do you need from me?" "We need you to contact Derek Sterling." Emma stared at him. "Derek Sterling has been dead for 15 years. His obituary said he died in a skiing accident in Switzerland in 2008. Chen smiled grimly. "That's what they wanted people to believe. Derek Sterling is very much alive. He's been running one of their European operations from a facility outside Geneva." He slid a photograph across the table. It showed a man in his late 30s entering a sleek modern building. The face was older, but unmistakably Derek Sterling. "We've been monitoring his communications for 6 months. He's been planning to return to the United States to expand operations. But your discovery of the trophy room has him spooked. He's been making calls to his associates trying to figure out how much the FBI knows." "And you want me to what? Call him up and chat about old times?" "We want you to make contact as Emma Rodriguez, not as FBI agent Rodriguez. Tell him you found the hidden room. Tell him you want answers about what happened to your friends. Make him think you're investigating on your own." "You want me to be bait." "We want you to give him a reason to come back to the United States, where we can arrest him." Emma thought about Jessica's bracelet, about Tyler's MIT acceptance letter, about 9 bright futures cut short by greed and madness. "What makes you think he'll come?" Chen leaned back in his chair. Because Derek Sterling has been obsessed with you for 18 years. You were supposed to be part of that group. You were the one who got away. And according to his communications, he's never stopped thinking about that. Emma spent 3 sleepless nights preparing for the phone call that could either break the case open or get her killed. FBI technicians had established a secure line that could be traced while maintaining her cover. Agent Chen and his team would be monitoring from a van parked outside her apartment. She placed the call at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, knowing it would be evening in Switzerland. Derek Sterling. Hearing his voice after 18 years sent chills down Emma's spine. He sounded older, more controlled, but she could still hear echoes of the arrogant teenager who had thought himself untouchable. Derek, this is Emma Rodriguez from Riverside High. Silence. Then, Emma. I wondered when you might call. I found your trophy room, Derek. I found everything. I assume you mean the storage area beneath the estate. Yes, I heard about the hurricane damage. Unfortunate. His casual tone made Emma's skin crawl. Unfortunate? My friends are dead, Derek. 9 people I loved, and you kept their belongings like souvenirs. Your friends served a greater purpose, Emma. They contributed to research that has saved thousands of lives. They were murdered. They were selected. There's a difference. Emma forced herself to stay calm. Selected for what? The Young Talents Foundation identified individuals with exceptional genetic markers for intelligence and creativity. These traits are incredibly valuable for certain types of research. Research into what? Derek paused, and Emma could hear him moving around, possibly checking to ensure his line was secure. Cognitive enhancement, memory manipulation, the development of pharmaceutical compounds that can improve human intellectual capacity. Your friend's neural tissue provided breakthrough data in all 3 areas. Emma gripped the phone tighter. You're talking about experimenting on living human beings. I'm talking about advancing human evolution. Do you have any idea how many medical breakthroughs have come from our research? How many diseases we've been able to cure? By torturing and murdering children. By making difficult choices for the greater good. Emma, you were always the smartest one in our class. Surely you can understand the mathematics. 9 lives versus thousands saved through our research. Emma looked at Agent Chen, who was giving her encouraging gestures to keep Derek talking. I want to understand, Emma said. I want to know exactly what happened to them. Are you recording this conversation, Emma? No. I think you are. I think you've been working with federal authorities. But that's all right. I've been wanting to return to the United States anyway. There's unfinished business there. Emma's blood went cold. What kind of unfinished business? You, Emma, you were supposed to be part of the original group. Your genetic profile was one of our most promising targets. When you didn't attend the party, it created a significant gap in our research data. I'm not 18 anymore, Derek. No, but your neural patterns are still valuable. And now that you've been investigating this matter, you represent a security risk that needs to be addressed. The line went dead. Agent Chen immediately got on his radio. All units, subject has terminated contact. He knows we're monitoring. Initiate protective protocols for Agent Rodriguez immediately. Emma stared at the silent phone. He's coming for me. We'll be ready for him. Derek Sterling returned to the United States 3 days later on a private jet, registered to a shell company in the Cayman Islands. FBI surveillance tracked him to a rented warehouse in an industrial section of Hartford, just 20 miles from Riverside. Emma waited in her apartment, surrounded by federal agents, but feeling more alone than she had in years. Chen had wanted to move her to a safe house, but Emma had insisted on staying put. If Derek was coming for her, she wanted to face him where this had all started. The call came at 11:47 p.m. Emma, I'm parked outside your building. Come down alone and we can finish our conversation. I'm not going anywhere with you, Derek. I think you will, because I have something you want to see. Emma looked out her window. A black sedan was parked across the street, its engine running. What are you talking about? I brought you a graduation present, Emma. Something I've been saving for 18 years. Derek ended the call. A minute later, Emma's phone buzzed with a text message. It was a photograph taken from inside the sedan. Jessica Torres was in the back seat. Emma's hands began shaking. Jessica looked older, her hair different, her face gaunt, but it was unmistakably her best friend. She was wearing hospital scrubs and appeared to be sedated, but she was alive. Emma's phone rang again. You have 5 minutes to come downstairs, Emma. Come alone or Jessica dies. Again. Agent Chen grabbed Emma's arm as she headed for the door. It's a trap. That photo could be fake. Look at her eyes, Chen. Look at the scar on her chin from when we crashed our bikes when we were 12. That's really her. Even if it is, we can't let you go down there. Emma pulled away from him. I've been waiting 18 years to save my friends. I'm not going to fail the one who might still be alive. She walked out of the apartment before Chen could stop her. Derek was waiting by the sedan, looking exactly like he had in the surveillance photos from Geneva. Older, but still carrying himself with the arrogant confidence that had made him so dangerous as a teenager. Hello, Emma. You look well. Let me see her. Derek opened the back door of the sedan. Jessica was slumped against the seat, breathing but unconscious. Emma could see 4 marks on her arms and surgical scars on her scalp. What did you do to her? Jessica has been part of our research program for 18 years. She's contributed valuable data to studies on memory suppression and cognitive restructuring. Unfortunately, the process has been taxing. Emma felt rage building in her chest. You've been torturing her for 18 years. We've been studying her. There's a difference. Where are the others? Derek's smile faded slightly. The others didn't adapt as well to the program. Jessica was always the strongest mentally. She lasted longer than most. They're dead. They served their purpose. That's when Emma heard the sound of vehicles surrounding them. FBI agents emerged from unmarked cars, weapons drawn. Derek Sterling, you're under arrest for multiple counts of kidnapping and murder, Agent Chen announced. Derek didn't seem surprised. I told you this was unfinished business, Emma. He pulled a syringe from his jacket and grabbed Jessica, pressing the needle against her neck. Everyone back away, or I kill her right now. Emma stepped forward. Derek, you've already won. You kept her alive for 18 years. You made your point. Let her go. My point was that some people are more valuable than others. Your friend here has provided data that has led to treatments for Alzheimer's, schizophrenia, and traumatic brain injury. Her sacrifice has meaning. Her sacrifice? She never consented to be part of your experiments. Consent is a luxury we can't afford when we're advancing human knowledge. Emma was close enough now to see Derek's hand trembling. You're scared, aren't you? You've been hiding in Europe for 15 years because you knew this day would come. I'm not scared of anything. You're scared because you know that no matter how much you justify it, no matter how many lives you claim to have saved, you're just a serial killer with a medical degree. Derek's face contorted with rage. I'm a visionary. I'm advancing human evolution. That's when Jessica's eyes opened. For just a moment, she was lucid enough to grab Derek's wrist and twist the syringe away from her neck. Emma lunged forward and tackled Derek to the ground just as FBI agents swarmed the vehicle. It was over. 2 years later, Emma stood in the chapel at Riverside High School, looking at 9 photographs arranged on the altar. The memorial service had taken this long to organize because it had taken this long to bring all the perpetrators to justice. Derek Sterling had been sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole. The trial had revealed the full scope of the talent pipeline conspiracy, a network of wealthy families, corrupt officials, and rogue scientists who had been kidnapping and experimenting on gifted young people for more than 30 years. In total, 47 people were arrested across 8 states. The investigation had uncovered evidence of more than 200 victims over 3 decades. Jessica Torres was alive, but the 18 years of experimentation had left her with severe neurological damage. She was receiving treatment at a specialized facility, and Emma visited her every week. Sometimes Jessica recognized her, sometimes she didn't. But she was alive, and that was enough. Emma had left the FBI to establish the Riverside Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to investigating suspicious disappearances of gifted young people and providing support for families dealing with such cases. "Your friends didn't die in vain," she said to the photographs. "Their deaths exposed a conspiracy that had been claiming victims for decades. And Jessica's survival means that other families will get the answers they deserve." Emma placed a flower beneath each photograph, saving Jessica's for last. "I kept my promise," she whispered. "I never stopped looking for you." As she left the chapel, Emma's phone buzzed with a message from the Foundation's tip line. Another family, another missing gifted teenager, another case that needed investigation. The work continued. And Emma Rodriguez, the girl who had been saved by a last-minute trip to Mexico, was making sure that no one else would have to wait 18 years for answers. If you or someone you know has information about suspicious educational or research programs targeting gifted young people, contact the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-THE-LOST.